name's Emily Best. I'm the founder and CEO of Seed and Spark.
And I'm Alex DeBranco, and I work at Tug. I'm the director of community screenings there.
And we're here to talk to you about something that on this slide it says how to crowdfund seriously, but actually what we're going to talk to you about today is using the tools of crowdfunding to build your independence as a visual artist or whatever kind of artist you feel like being, or frankly if you want to start a startup, this will be good for that too. Just for some reference, in case you have no idea what Seed and Spark does, I also have some postcards for that. We are a selective crowdfunding and integrated distribution platform. Our crowdfunding tool works like a wedding registry, so you can list the individual items you need, and your audiences can loan things to you, or they can contribute money directly to the stuff that interests them. It is a competitor to the big guys like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, but we were just recently reviewed by a whole bunch of crowdfunders, and not only did we win in every single category, including customer service, our average campaign success rate is 74%, and theirs is about half that. We're really proud of that. And we're also an integrated cinema, so you can stream your film right inside of our cinema directly to your audiences behind a paywall, and in a few weeks we will be announcing that we are also now a distributor, so not just the American Express partnership that we announced a few weeks ago that gets 5 films a month into 67 million homes, but there will be more news on that front. So that's what Seed and Spark is in a nutshell.
And then, what is Tug? So, how many of you guys have heard about Tug? Some of you. Okay, cool. So, Tug is basically what happens after you've made your film and crowdfunded your film. Tug is a way to get your film into movie theaters all across the country through the same sort of crowdfunding mentality. So basically, the way it works is you put your film up on our platform, and then anybody, anywhere across the country can choose to host a screening of it at their local theater. And we work with about 90% of theaters across the country, and the only thing that they have to do once they create their event on our website is get a certain amount of people to buy tickets to their event before the screening itself. So it's basically guaranteeing that the screening happens through pre-sold tickets. We also now do screenings outside of movie theaters, which is the department I head up, which just allows you to screen in places like universities, churches, and like baseball stadiums, really anywhere and everywhere. And so overall, Tug is your kind of solution for all of your screening needs that happen once you've made them.
Can you use Tug for an Academy qualifying run? The answer is yes, you can.
You can also use it to qualify for VOD and premium VOD. Like the VOD people need you to have 10 markets where you screened in theaters, and Tug screenings count for that too.
So unlike, I think, traditional sort of keynote speeches that are often kind of stump speeches or a way to get you riled up or sort of more theoretical, we are here kind of as a call to action to give you real actionable tools over the course of this workshop that you can take away that will last you. If you want to crowdfund, great. If you want to crowdsource your theatrical, great. If you want to build an independent career as an artist, that is what we're here to talk about today. The only proven path to independence that has ever existed in the film business is a direct connection to your audience. And that is what we are really passionate about. Is we want you guys to each find your audiences that will sustain your careers, that will let you feed your families and pay your rent. And maybe it'll make some of you rich and famous, but actually we don't think that part is necessarily important. I would like everybody in this room to be able to support themselves and the lives that they want to lead on the art that they make. It's kind of a radical notion, but it's actually possible with technology today. Okay. If you are thinking about crowdfunding, and this means you probably have a project in development. How many people have a project in development? Great. How many people have a project in like pre-production, or anybody in production? Whoa! Thank you for being here. Anybody in post? Cool. Anybody post festivals, distribution? Yeah. Anybody have a film here? Yeah, guys. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate it. So these are all stages at which you might crowdfund something. How many people are thinking about crowdfunding right now? Right on. Okay. So if you are thinking about crowdfunding right now, it is in fact already time to think about your distribution, how you're going to deliver your film. The reason that I, who is often considered somebody who lives at the very beginning of the filmmaking process, and Alex, who's often thought of as somebody who is at the very end of the filmmaking process, are standing here together today, is because you can no longer, in this really independent universe, divorce your audience building from your distribution plans. The way that you think about building audiences, no matter how far upstream you are in your project, is absolutely tied to how you're going to deliver your film, what happens if you get picked up by a distributor out of one of these festivals, what happens if you don't, which is unfortunately the more likely scenario and one I think we can prepare for, and where you want to screen theatrically and how much money that costs. Because obviously if you're thinking about funding now, what are you funding for? What are you paying for? Don't be so short-sighted as to only think about paying for the next step. See how much it will all cost right from the beginning.
Yeah, and also thinking about from the beginning, in terms of who you're asking to fund your film, those are going to be the people who are going to want to host screenings of your film. Like at Tug, everything that we do is driven by finding what we call them promoters, and those are the people that will actually host screenings. And that's a very different kind of person than somebody who might watch your film, on VOD or even attend a screening. So you have to be thinking about who are these people? How do we find them? And we're going to go through all of that. But the point is the people that will activate your theatrical and community screening model and actually attend these screenings are the same people who are going to be funding your movie. So if you find them when you fund your movie, you can activate them for those screenings.
Yep.
It's all the same.
All tied in.
And there are these things cost a lot of money. I don't know if anybody, do you guys know what a DCP is? Yeah, so that costs money. At Tug, we make them for $900. Other people make them, that's super cheap. Other people make them for a lot more. Blu-ray, to get a master Blu-ray ripped, costs about $3,000 a Tug. Other places it's also more. So these are things that you have to be aware of before you make your film, so you can raise the money for them, so you're not, maxing out a lot of credit cards way later.
So where do you start? Where can you possibly start in all of this? This is a lot to think about already. 3 questions. Who the hell is your audience? Where the hell are they? And how the hell do you get their email addresses? Now, this sounds sort of old and old marketery, like email marketing. It's still the same stuff, you guys. People pay more attention when you reach them in their inboxes than when you reach them in their Twitter feeds or you reach them on their Facebook posts. I can tell you from the data that I look at every single day, yes, more people visit Seed and Spark from Facebook than any other referrer, but they hang out, spend more time on the site, and spend more money on the site when it comes directly from email. And that's something you need to know. That all of the talk that you're going to do in your careers about social media outreach is only as valuable as you can bring them in closer and closer to you. So social media is sort of out here, email address is kind of in here, and maybe this is where you keep your friends. Your social media outreach is only valuable to you insofar as you can create a call to action that will get you an email address, because that's the next step towards actually getting them to do something that you want them to do. So we're going to talk a lot about this today. How the hell do you get their email addresses?
And the one thing I would probably add as a question is why do they care? Once you find them, why are they going to care about your movie? With independent films, it's all these are going to be niche audiences, and you have to figure out what it is about your film, especially if it's a documentary, but also a narrative. Why is somebody going to want to care about your movie? What connects them to that movie?
So here's the thing. We ask a lot of filmmakers, who the hell is your audience? And they go, it's women between the ages of 24 and 35. No, it is fucking not. Here's the thing. If you are a studio and you have $200 million in your marketing budget, you can go ahead and reach all the women between 24 and 35 and hope that the ones who actually want to watch your movie will go watch your movie, and that somehow that will balance out with foreign sales and however they make their insane calculations. But those women up there, if you can see them, I'm fairly certain those 3 women don't watch all the same stuff, and they don't read all the same stuff, and they don't like to be talked to in the same way. And similar, those 3 men do not watch the same movies, They do not visit the same websites. They probably don't even necessarily all use the same social media platforms, okay? So if you have very constrained resources, if you don't have $200 million, you have $2,000 or $20 or $2 or your elbow grease in order to actually do the marketing. You have to know exactly who you're reaching and where to find them, which is to the next slide. You are going to start very simply. You have this movie. Who would like to be a volunteer? Somebody who is about to crowdfund a movie that you can pitch to me in, 30 seconds. Come on, I'll give you a present. Yeah! Okay. An action comedy. That's a good fucking pitch. A small town thug, no, cop, excuse me. A small town cop is looking for more excitement in her life, and that's exactly what she gets when a band of thugs come to town. Fabulous. Who is, think of somebody you know, who you know some things about, who would like this movie independently of the fact that they like you as a person. Can you think of one person? Cool. He or she? He, how old is he? 25. And did he go to college? Where did he go to college? York University in Toronto. He's in Canada. This is important information already. Where does he hang out online? Is he on Facebook or Twitter? Facebook only? Anywhere else? Is he a Redditor, 4chan?
He's not huge on social media.
Not huge in social media. Also important information. Where does he get his news? Awesome. Jon Stewart. No, that's really important information. So he likes satire. Cool. What music does he listen to? Oldies. This guy is a nerd. Awesome. No, I love him. What blogs does he read? Do you think he reads blogs?
Yeah,
IO9? It's a nerd. Amazing. No, this is really good. And anything else? Does he read BuzzFeed? Does he read like The Onion? Oh, so he reads. He likes movie stuff. Is he in the industry?
Yeah.
Okay. And where does he spend his free time? Is he one of us who just works all the time?
He works all the time.
He works all the time. Is he in front of his computer most of that time?
Computer or video games.
Or video games? Okay, good. And where does he watch the stuff he watches? Is he on mobile? Is he on TV? Is he on his laptop?
Yeah.
Okay. So imagine now we repeat this exercise with 4 more people she knows who are hopefully of different generations and genders, and we write down all of this information. We're going to start to get a sense of the people that actually want to watch our movie, where we can reach them, and how they like to be talked to. I'm going to go to the next slide. I just want to point something out. We just started crowdfunding. This thing that we just did right now, we have just started crowdfunding. Because the more you know about your audience, the more effective, interesting, exciting, and profitable your campaign will be, not just for you, but for your audience. Because by knowing all of this stuff, she's going to build a whole bunch of materials that are incredibly interesting to and respectful of the audience that she is trying to reach, right? Because she understands enough about them to know, as Alex said, why they will care about the thing that you're working on. This is somebody who believes that Jon Stewart is a good news source, which, by the way, I do too, right? Like I go to John Oliver oftentimes before I go to CNN. These are people who like to approach life with a certain sense of humor. You're making a humorous film. You can start to build a profile for the people you're trying to reach. We're already crowdfunding, guys. It's getting exciting. Okay. So, as I said, this is what your interview questions are going to get you to learn. What are you saying? How are you saying it? And even who will help you amplify your message. So if in the course of this interview we realize that like fully half of the audience that you can think of right now is in Toronto, there might be a couple of like influential Toronto blogs or newscasters or Twitter handles or local newspapers and radio stations even that reach a lot of these people. This is a very effective way to figure out how to focus your efforts, particularly for crowdfunding. Because you have to start somewhere. You can't start everywhere. And starting everywhere is what happens when you're like women between the ages of 24 and 35. That's like all the people. That's saying all the people. And I promise not all the people want to see what you're doing. But this information might actually change your movie that you're making. If it turns out everybody she interviews pretty much likes oldies, that might actually change the way you score your film. If it turns out that in fact everybody really likes satire, it might change the tone of your script because you're starting to collaborate now with the people who are going to support you. And while some people will say, oh, but that's selling out, I don't agree. I think selling out is ignoring your audience, pretending like you don't care that they come to see your movie. We're all in show business, right? Every movie is an LLC. We're starting companies in order to make these little pieces of art. So we can't pretend like the purpose is to fund it and make it. The purpose is to get people to see it. And that's what this process is really respectful of. So this is really about arriving at the tone of how you are going to start talking to people. And again, this has to start long before your crowdfunding launches because you have a lot of research to do now that you have these pieces of information. You can't see the second circle. That is actually a Venn diagram. It's not sort of a weirdly. The tone is the intersection between who you are authentically as an artist and who you're trying to reach, right? And it doesn't mean you have to give away all of who you are, and it doesn't mean you're going to reach everybody you'd like to reach. You're just looking for the intersection. And you're going to do something called message testing. So you're going to use your Facebook posts and your Twitter posts and your Instagram posts to start to test different kinds of text and images that you're figuring out how to post because you know some things about the people that you're talking about. So you know that he likes satire. That tells you a lot about the kind of text you're going to use. It's always probably going to be funny, a little bit incendiary, a little bit silly, sometimes kind of loopy. It'll feel maybe a little Onion-esque, right? The kinds of images that you post they might be sort of like newsy, or you might want to start testing out a few, if you've already shot your film, stills from your film to see what people react to most. Or if you have a lookbook, you might start using stuff out of there to see even if your lookbook is appropriately representing things to your audience. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to start to put this out in the world. You're going to start to talk to people about your film. Hey, we're making this movie. It's so exciting. Come join our email list, or come look at this Facebook page, or any of these things. And you start to see, when do you get more likes on your Facebook page? And when do you not? Are there things that you post that nobody gives a shit about, and things that you post that everyone responds to? This is important information. This is how you're starting to learn what works for your film. How many of you have heard of a movie called Dear White People? It's coming out in theaters very soon. That movie started as a Twitter account. Justin Simeon was like, I have this character in my head. I'm going to start a Twitter account in her voice. And it was so incredibly popular that the reactions and the conversations that he had on Twitter started to actually influence the script that he was writing. This is what I'm talking about. This is message testing at its finest. A couple of things that are really important to know, pro tips on messaging. Do not plead. How many of you, in let's say the last 2 weeks, have gotten a, please donate to my Kickstarter campaign. If you don't give us money now, we'll get nothing. I did. I got 4. Anybody else? Yeah. It's the worst. And while guilt is a powerful motivator, it's not a great audience builder. I definitely gave money to some of those campaigns, but I didn't feel good about it. Altruism always works. Help others, right? Promote your friend's work as you're promoting yourself. What we know is that, a year ago they were saying to have an effective Twitter account that was self-promotional, you needed to post 3 things about, articles and other people for every 1 thing for yourself. 6 months ago, they were saying 5 things about other people for every 1 thing about yourself. And last week, I was at a marketing conference and they said 9 things about other people before you post anything about yourself. And one really clever way to post something about yourself that's actually about other people is, thank you so much. What's your name? Chantal, for contributing to my campaign. You should check out this rad action comedy that she's working on, and a link to her thing. You just use thank you about my project to promote her project. She feels good, you feel good. You think she retweets that?
Yep.
You think she reposts it to her Facebook page? You bet. So right here, you totally can't see those, are a couple of tweets that came up from our Seed and Spark community. Nia on Vacation was a film that was funding, and she was in the first maybe 5 days of her campaign, and she actually took a lot of time to promote all of the other campaigns on Seed and Spark that were finishing earlier than hers. That was one of the ways she used her altruism. So she reached out not just to her community, but to the audiences of all the other movies on Seed and Spark. It was incredibly altruistic and very effective. She successfully funded as well. Sean Mannion, who you were gonna get tired of hearing me talk about, made a short film called Time Signature that is about time travel. And he knows about time signature that people who are a fan of Vigaloundo's Time Crimes would probably also like time signature. So he went directly to that on Twitter. Are you a fan of Vigaloundo's Time Crimes? If so, check out Time Signature, currently on Seed and Spark. He didn't ask for money, right? And he didn't plead or anything like that. He offered something. He offered something, just like the Nia on Vacation team offered something, right? And that's gonna become a really important theme. Crowdfunding, as it turns out, audience building, as it turns out, is not about asking for stuff or attention. It's about offering something that you powerfully believe in.
Password?
Uh-oh.
Close your eyes.
Everyone's gonna see it anyway.
Like if you're begging and if you're asking, you know, like that, what Sean did, it makes his film, it gives him value, and it doesn't treat it like a project that you need money for. It's a project that people should want to give money for if they care about it. I think there's a big difference between those two things, and the option where you value yourself and your project is going to be something that a lot more people beyond your network want to give to because it's something that is interesting and they care about, as opposed to somebody who's pleading, because you might get your money and you might not, but in either case, the way that people view you and that piece of art is going to be way different. It's going to be viewed as like a favor,
That's right.
a lot more than something that they respect and care about.
That's right. Excellent. So here's the thing. The big deal with tone is it's about creating the sense of momentum, or communicating what is probably an actual sense of momentum, and the inevitability of success, right? So rather than pleading, which makes people feel like it might fail, altruism, offering, excitement, humor, these are all things that sort of quietly announce, like, this thing is happening, this ship is sailing, do you want to get on board? And that's a really, really important thing, as Alex said, to making everyone feel like they're participating in something that's, really valuable and exciting and interesting.
And that's also incredibly true for Tug, like this idea of momentum, because with Tug, when you release your film on a platform, screenings can be taking place all over the country, and it can be kind of happening all at once. And so the magic of social media and the internet is that people will start seeing that your film is screening in all of these little pockets across the country, and they'll be posting about those screenings, and the filmmakers will be posting about those meeting threshold, which means like they're definitely going to happen. And as more and more screenings pop up, well, then the rest of the country who's following you or any of the people who are hosting screenings, they start to see that these screenings are happening. And then it's this kind of thing where, like, I want to get involved in this really cool thing that's happening, so that makes other people want to host screenings, and it snowballs and it builds, and then all of a sudden you have 50 screenings happening all across the country in movie theaters. So the same ideas of momentum, and pretty much everything that Emily's saying would carry through, like, really well to everything you're doing on that.
So this is a question we get asked a lot. How much money should I raise? And we always say, how much money do you need? So ask yourself a couple of questions, and then I'm gonna circle back, right? How much does production cost? How much will distribution cost? And how much do you need to deliver your incentives, which is something that people forget to budget for? That's one way to do it, right? You can say, I'm gonna look at, from the moment of pre-production until through festivals and distribution, how much money will the whole kit and caboodle cost? And oftentimes you add that up and you go, ooh, I don't think I can raise that much money in crowdfunding, right? And that's totally understandable. Particularly if you're somebody that has, 100 Twitter followers and like whatever Facebook friends you've gathered along the way. Like if you don't have a big social media presence and you don't have a 10,000 person email list, you got a couple hundred people on an email list who started for a former film and then forgot about it. You have a Twitter handle that you use, kind of. You have Facebook that you interact with regularly. Does this describe some of you? Yeah? Do you feel familiar with this? Okay. So a ginormous crowdfunding ask without a celebrity attached to your project may not be the best thing to do right off the bat. Because it does, the power of your network is your existing network is very important to your crowdfunding campaigns. So Seed and Spark is purpose-built for something called staged financing, which we're seeing filmmakers do increasingly all over the country, which is they raise for development, and then they raise for production, and then maybe they raise for post and festivals, or they raise for festivals and distribution. We have one filmmaker named Liam Brady. He's an NYU Tisch graduate, needed to raise money for his thesis film, had a very small social media and email network. So he started by raising $6,000 on Seed and Spark. He actually launched the day we launched as a company on December 1st, 2012. A $6,000 campaign for development. And he was very specific with his audience about exactly how far that $6,000 would get him. It would get him some readings, it would rent him rehearsal room, it would get a casting director, it would buy some marketing materials, which he would send out. It would get him exactly this far. He was incredibly specific about this $6,000 will do this much for this film. He overfunded, I think he raised like 110 or 120% of his goal. 3 months later, after doing exactly what he had promised in the development campaign with that $6,000 and keeping his audience up to date all along the way, he launched a production campaign for $35,000 because he had grown his audience so much in that first little push. And he learned a lot about who they were and what they liked, and he cut a brand new pitch video. And he raised $35,000 for production. And he completed production, and then about 4 months ago, he launched a $6,000 distribution campaign, and he funded the distribution. And now what are we at? $54,000 for a short film that he raised over the course of a year. And what he did is he took a month out each time to focus solely on the crowdfunding campaign and the audience building. And then in those in-between times, he was keeping the audience updated on the marks that he was hitting that he had promised from the previous campaign. So all I will say about how much do you need to raise is you need to raise, or you need to ask for, exactly what you need to advance the project to the next stage that you are promising in that campaign. And I'm going to pause here and I'm going to say something that I think is really important. Crowdfunding is not a right. It is a privilege that is bestowed upon us by our audiences. And it hinges entirely on the trust and reputation that we have with our audiences. So I will stop and say, I would like the keep what you can funding model to go away. Because if you need $20,000 and you raise $2,000, as far as I can tell, there are 2 things that can happen. You don't do what you promised, in which case you have $2,000 worth of people who are feeling bummed out, and they're probably people who know you personally, and maybe they'll forgive you and maybe they won't. They certainly won't advocate for you if you ever launch another campaign. The second thing that can happen is that you try to do for $2,000 what you promised for $20,000, and I mean, I know filmmakers. We are miracle workers. We can do a lot for $2,000. We can make $2,000 with like $20,000. But the chances are you probably won't deliver what you promised for that amount of money. And if you are trying to raise $20,000 and you raise $2,000, something is not going right. You're not connecting with the audiences in the way that you're hoping, and you need to go back to the drawing board. It's important feedback and important information. And every time you launch a crowdfunding campaign, that tells a whole new segment of the world about how they're gonna feel about crowdfunding. So this is a responsibility we really all have to one another and to our audiences. It's really important to me, and I wanted to pause to say it. Whoops. Basically, when that happens, it means I talk too much on that slide. I apologize. So ask for what you need. Yes. Incentives. How do you figure out how you're going to get people excited about contributing different levels of money to you? Well, first of all, how many people in here are manufacturers? I didn't think so. We're filmmakers, right? Don't make stuff. Don't promise t-shirts and stuff that you have to print and pay for. Promise people stuff that involves them more deeply in your film. Now that said, if you're making a documentary about a t-shirt manufacturer, I think a t-shirt is a great incentive. There are situations in which stuff makes sense. If you're doing really cool stuff, making really cool claymations, you can offer, props and pieces of the set and, figurines and things like that. I'm not saying don't send any stuff, but the incentive should really be geared towards getting your community more invested in your film, your story, and you as an artist. So I'm going to go back to Sean Mannion really quickly, because the second thing I want to say is that your $10 to $25 incentives, these are the ones that are the most common. You'll give away the most of these. We find the most success is when they are personal, visual, and shareable. So what can you make that is personal to the person who contributed to you, that is visual because that is the medium that we are experts in, and shareable, which is to say you can share it on their social media and then they can share it with a whole bunch of other people. Sean Mannion. Oh, come on in.
That was all fine.
So that's going to be the red herring of the day. This image on the left, on the right here, on your right, yes, on your right. Anything else?
No.
Sean Mannion's making this movie about time travel, and I contributed $25 to his campaign. I always fund the food. I'm a producer. I want people to eat well, so I always fund the food. So I put $25 towards craft services, and he writes me. He said, "Thank you so much for your contribution. If you could travel anywhere in time, where would you go?" And I was being a little bit snarky because I thought this was funny, and I was like, "I'd like to be at the signing of the Magna Carta, like the beginning of government as we know it." 15 minutes later, you guys, he shares on Twitter, "We found at Emily Best at the signing of the Magna Carta, where will we find you?" And if you're not close enough, you can't see that my Facebook profile picture is adjusted in Photoshop into the signing of the Magna Carta so well that I didn't notice at first that I was in it. And then I noticed that apparently the haircut that I rock is the 13th century friar. Which is a little bit of a bummer to find out about. But this was great. It is my Facebook background photo to this day. It's been months. It's one of the funniest things I've gotten. I trust him immediately as an artist. I shared it with all of my friends. I was like, everybody wants one of these. Where are you going to travel in time? Because now I wanted to see what else he would do. He ended up photoshopping an amazing photograph he found of my friend Erica from when she was in Israel riding a camel, and she put Erica with this hilarious expression on her face of this camel standing up underneath her on the moon landing. It's one of the funniest photographs I've ever seen. Anyway, so now I'm sharing it everywhere, and I'm advocating for him everywhere. That's why these personal, visual, shareable incentives, they can really express your creativity. I'm really thinking about time travel now, which is deeply embedded in the thesis of his film, and I have become his greatest advocate. You can think about other things like first date only incentives. I'm sure you guys have heard in plenty of crowdfunding workshops, the momentum really comes out of the first day and first week. So projects that raise up to 30% within their first week have an 80% chance of success. You need to get to that first 30%. Here's another fact. That first 30% is going to come from your network. No matter what platform you're on, the first 30% is going to come from your network. Why? Because strangers like to pick a winner. That's a fact. That's why the momentum and inevitability of success is really important. And they want to know that your community trusts you enough with their money before they trust you with their money, right? So the first 30% is going to come from your community. And so you want to think about how to really incentivize the people inside your community to make sure they show up in the first 24 hours or the first 7 days, because that's going to be important to your project. A lot of people want to talk about crowdfunding platforms as pre-sales, and that's true. But with film, like pre-buying a movie is not that exciting as it is like that new coin. Is anybody else getting a coin in the mail? I am. It's like a single card that's all your credit cards. I'm so stoked, right? So rather than just a pre-sale, rather than saying now you own a copy of the film when I finish it in 18 months, think about something like the day that it premieres, at whatever festival it premieres, you will get a password protected screener link and you can watch it with us in the moment, the very first moment the little baby is born in the world. Think about what kinds of early access you can offer, as opposed to just pre-sales, that really gives people a reason to get involved early. Delivery really matters, and I'm going to say this because I talk to distributors all the time who are now very used to picking up crowdfunded films, and they were like, do you know how often a filmmaker will walk in here and be like, so I promised 250 Blu-rays, can I have those out of the run of Blu-rays you're planning to press? And the distributors were like, no, you cannot. That's your problem. I didn't promise it. So don't assume that a distributor picks up the obligation of your rewards as Warner Brothers did for Zach Braff, and then they failed miserably at it, P.S. So don't let somebody else mess up your incentives. Make sure that if you're going to mess them up, it's you who can apologize for it. Be prepared for delivery, and also be prepared for the way that can affect your distribution relationships. So particularly when you're promising pre-sale, when you're promising early access, if you're promising DVDs, just know that that stuff can get messed up by whatever distribution deals you might be lucky enough to make, in which case, communicate very clearly with your audience. There's some pro tips there. Budgeting for delivery, we already talked about that. So if you are going to do t-shirts, that ship costs money to ship. I really don't recommend trying to ship things that are funny shapes. That costs more to ship. Think about premiere parties, right? Can you throw an event? Or wrap parties. Can you invite people to finally see those two PAs consummate all that sexual tension they've had on the entire, length of the shoot? I don't mean watch them have sex, by the way. I just mean the flirt anyway. We'll talk about specialty screenings, on-set meals. People love coming to set. What we do is still really exciting, even in this town. Think about that, and of course, humorous things like this, if it fits your film, always work.
And also inviting them to screenings, right? So screenings that you do through Tug, or if you know you're going to have screenings in certain markets, giving them a VIP ticket to one of those events. And something else that is true broadly is, sort of monitoring what rewards people want, right? So if everybody's getting a certain kind of reward, well, you should maybe do more of that or do a different flavor of that thing. And that also means if you see that, because you can monitor your what people are getting, and you can see if you see that 50 people got something from Portland, well, that means that there are 50 people who are really excited about your movie in Portland. That means you should probably have a screening there, right? So that then you can offer a Tug, take it to a Tug screening as a reward in Portland, because you're already gonna have something there. So what that means broadly is just monitoring what people want and using that as a way to adjust and modify what you're gonna do, what you're gonna continue to do for your campaign.
Okay, let's go crazy. We'll just spitballing here. What if you could write to a producer, Jon Stewart, and say, is there any way you would give me 10 tickets to a live taping of Jon Stewart to give away as part of my crowdfunding campaign? They might say no, but they might not, right? And that could be really cool. I mean, it can get really creative the way that you build your community with your incentive outreach.
Yeah, and also leveraging the talent of your crew. Some of the best rewards I've seen is having somebody edit your movie, or if your editor is down to do that. Things that other people in the filmmaking community really need. If you can offer that stuff, they'll take it,
Andi Timoner, in her A Total Disruption campaign, she's a famous documentarian. She's won Sundance twice. She's releasing 3 films this year. She offered businesses at the $10,000 level. She offered to do your business's corporate video, and that went really well for her. She sold a bunch of those. Pitch videos. I can go through this fairly quickly because it's pretty simple. Number 1, the first 15 seconds of your pitch video have to be for the audience of your film, not for your mommy. Okay? And it sounds kind of rude, but I can't tell you how many videos I see that's a filmmaker sitting down in frame and going, hi, my name is so-and-so. This is my favorite part. I'm shooting a terrifying thriller. And already I'm like, well, I don't care. And I'm not a thriller person, but if I like thrillers, I would have been done already. You have 15 seconds to grab your audience's attention and 90 seconds to say the rest of what you have to say. for the most part, pitch videos take 2 tacks. One is like 90 seconds straight to the point, get in, get out, say what you need to say. And the other is sort of like the 4-minute short film. And these are the ones that you see for the very high dollar campaigns. They're very structured, they're themselves kind of high budget. And that's what you've seen for like the Zach Braff campaign, Veronica Mars, Reading Rainbow, things like that. Those are higher budget. You can do a lot. I mean, you guys are filmmakers. Like, you can do a lot in 90 seconds that's really effective. And I can tell you from watching where people drop off, they've decided whether or not they're going to chip in within 90 seconds, if not the first 15. This is where your message testing comes back to being really, really important. What kind of music is in the background that really interests them? We had a filmmaker, another NYU filmmaker, made a movie called Rez with a Spike Lee Foundation grant that was about Ojibwe teens on the Leech Lake Reservation in Minnesota. He had already shot the film, he was raising money for post, and he knew a lot. He'd spent a lot of time with these kids on this Leech Lake Reservation. The very end, in the last like 15 seconds of what's just under a 2-minute video, the last 30 seconds, he laid in a hip hop track that I think he had heard while he was up there. And that video, when we pushed it to YouTube, got 60,000 views in the first 24 hours and hundreds of comments of just conversation of these kids, because it turns out, by the way, if you want to find Ojibwe teens, they're all hanging out on YouTube. Just conversations about, what's that song? It's this song. My friend wrote that song. I love that song. This is the best song. Where can I get that song? And so it was a piece of something that he really understood about his audience and his subject matter that really took the campaign viral. They funded in 24 hours. They ended up doubling their funding, and amazing things happened. They got to pitch participant media for the feature. It was incredible. But it was all because he knew just enough about his audience to lay in the right track, right? So that stuff is really important in your pitch video. The personal appeal is essential. Your pitch video has to cover 3 things. Who are you? What are you making? Oh, 4 things. What do you need to get it done? And why should anybody care, right? And we call that personal appeal because, generally speaking, if you can communicate what authentically to your soul makes you have to make this film, or do this project with this group of people, or express yourself in the medium of film in whatever way, you will touch the hearts of the people who also want to get involved with you. And you can do that as much for a thriller. There's a great film that raised a lot of money for a thriller on our website called If There's a Hell Below. And they basically shot the little first part of a thriller and still made me feel something about them as a filmmaking team by the end. Because we are talking about fundraising for film, your pitch video has to be good. End of story. Don't put out a crappy pitch video because it says who you are as a filmmaker, right? It is your trust and reputation, which is why containing it to 90 seconds, writing a script for it, treating it like a short film, good idea. All right, as if you haven't gotten enough information, I'm about to give you guys this is a technical term, fuck ton of information right now about all the things that are going to go into the organization of your campaign. And I'm going to do it quickly, and I'm going to tell you this is available online, this deck, and also an entire written out version of this class, so you won't have to take insane notes. I'm just going to go over it because it's important to hear me talk about it, okay? Direct outreach. This is everyone that you have access to. So these are the elements that are going to go into the organization of your plan. Your current email list, everybody who's ever written you, every Gmail address you've ever gotten. That's the nice thing about all these email inboxes is you have all those email addresses. You're going to take your team's collected emails and you're going to chop them up into who do we need to write to ahead of time, who's going to definitely contribute on the first day, who are a couple of our like high dollar targets that we're going to see about maybe getting them to do a matching campaign at some point. Who are the people who I can put on kind of like a big email blast? Can I get my alumni organization to let me write an email to everybody on their email list? Anywhere you have direct access. And that also means Facebook direct messaging, Twitter direct messaging, things like that. Partnerships, so if you have influencers in your community, people with a lot of followings, what are you writing to them and what language are you giving them to make sure that when they share your campaign, they're doing it in the way that adheres to your message testing, and then just figure out anywhere else you have direct access to people. Like, can you get up at the end of church and be like, hey everybody, I just want to talk to you briefly about this movie that I'm making, or wherever it is you convene with people. Updates. Every crowdfunding platform has a way to update your community. These are really important. These should also be personal, visual, and shareable as much as they can be, because these are ways to announce your success, show more ways in which you and your team are awesome artists, and this is ways to take the people who've contributed to your campaign and turn them into advocates for your campaign. So you want to think about what's going to be cool to them. You want to have again, visual and preferably video updates, and the same rules kind of apply to your video updates as to your pitch video. They've got to be compelling to your audience. They've got to make people feel cool for sharing them. So they take some advanced planning. So spend some time planning what those updates are going to be. Are you doing a casting session in the middle of your crowdfunding campaign? Plan one of your updates to announce who you've cast. Maybe film a piece of it if somebody's amenable to doing that. Anything that is, funny, intriguing, teasers, but you're going to need to plan ahead for that. Next. Your social media, right? So what are you doing across social media? What audiences are you trying to reach? Who are you tweeting at or tumbling or Facebooking or Pinteresting along the way that is going to grow your overall influence, right? Who are you reaching out to that's got a shit ton of Twitter followers who's going to help you amplify your message, and how are you going to get to them? Have a plan, as Sean Mannion did, to thank everyone publicly. You can't really barely see, but that is my friend Max over JFK's left shoulder, but in the movie Forrest Gump. So Max wanted to travel to a fictional place in a fictional real history, and that is where he went. So thanking everyone publicly is really important, and you want to kind of have a plan for how that's going to look. Promoting your friends' work. So who in all of your team, what are they working on? Do they have films coming out that you can be promoting along the way? Making announcements on social media. So everything that you would think about pushing in your updates, you're also going to announce on social media, and there can be little things along the way. Again, enticing, teasing. And then there's all these bonus elements for crowdfunding. Do you see what I did there, guys? But the fun in crowdfunding. Are you going to throw a launch event for the beginning of your campaign? Or might I recommend you throw an event smack dab in the middle of the campaign when you're in the doldrums? And don't worry, every campaign has them. You have a big first week, you have terrifying, terrible middle 2 weeks, and a really big last week. That's how 80% of the campaigns go. And the people whose campaigns are not terrifying in the middle 2 weeks are people who have planned in advance to do a ton of cool shit in those middle 2 weeks to keep people really excited, to activate new audiences, to throw events and let the people who are contributing know that they're part of this growing community. Do you have maybe one contributor who's going to give $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 who will hold off and do a matching contribution campaign in week 2? Every dollar you raise up to $2,000 is doubled. Who doesn't like to double their money? Or short-term incentives. So this week only you can travel in time, and next week it won't be available anymore. Things like that that get people paying attention to doing things in short order. Does all of this sound like a lot of work? Yeah. It does, right? Go to the next slide, please. Don't do it by yourself, okay? How many people in here are freelancers? Okay, that's a lot of you. Here's what I know about freelance life. At any time, you might book a job that sucks your life right out of the world for an entire week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. If this happens during your crowdfunding campaign, you are screwed if you're doing it alone. But if you have a couple of people working on the campaign who care about it as much or even kind of as much as you do, and you have a written out schedule where all of these elements that I have just mentioned are hanging out and ready to go, you can take this thing or these files or this Google Doc and hand it off to someone while you go and make your rent on the set of a commercial or for, editing something last minute, or whatever it is that your freelance job sucks you up to do. But you need to prepare for that eventuality. And then also there's this other piece, which is like crowdfunding is lonely and terrifying, and it's a huge ask, and you put your heart out there into the universe, and then it's sort of like getting told no by your favorite people you love. It's like getting rejected every day, but it's also like getting accepted every day. And it's this roller coaster that you don't want to be on alone. So that part is really important. Don't do it alone. And I think the same is probably true for when you're setting up your tug campaign.
Yeah. I mean, all of it is about finding the people that care about what you're doing enough that they will help spread the word and help find, for Tug's sake, find the promoters who want to host screenings. And it's all, if you have one person doing something or 5 people doing something, you're going to be a lot more successful with 5.
That's right.
That's true for any part of the campaign.
So this is why I say you're going to put all of these things that I just talked about into a schedule, and don't worry, we've made you templates. On Seed and Spark, you can actually just download these templates for the 6 weeks before your campaign and the 4 weeks of your campaign and just plug and play. It's really helpful, I promise. Leave room for new elements. So I'll tell you a quick story. In May and June of last year, we crowdfunded for Seed and Spark, because we were a brand new platform back then, on Seed and Spark. We called it the Inception of Crowdfunding Campaigns. And I went to the Los Angeles Film Festival, and I was on a panel, and at the after party thing for the panel, I met this cinematographer named Vincent LaForêt, and he's what we might call a gearhead. He's a lovely human. He has a blog about gear and also just about filmmaking life that is incredibly well read. And I drank 2 glasses of wine on an empty stomach, and I made a couple of off-color remarks to somebody from Warner Brothers, and Vincent thought this was really funny, and we struck up a friendship. And he happened to be going sailing that weekend in Marina del Rey with the people from Red, and asked me if I would like to come, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm in the movie business, you guys. Going sailing in Marina del Rey with people from Red. And we struck up a friendship, and I told him I had a chance to really talk to him about what we were doing at Seed and Spark and why I thought it was important. And at 1 o'clock in the morning on the following Tuesday, he posted a blog on his website about Seed and Spark, our campaign, and why he thought it was important. And when I woke up at 9 o'clock in the morning, we'd had 3,000 views of our pitch video and thousands of dollars poured into our campaign from all over the world. And it was because I was not stuck behind my computer. I just got chills again because it's just one of the nicest things that anybody's ever done. I was out from behind my computer, I was out in the real world, and I was talking to real, actual humans that I hadn't met before about what I was doing and why I thought that it mattered. And what happened was all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, the gear community. I hadn't even thought about cinematographers. So I started reaching out to Philip Bloom and to the guys at Digital Bolex, and it's actually Guy and Gal at Digital Bolex, and they wrote a blog about us and reached out to a whole other community. And it totally proliferated our campaign and our platform into a community we hadn't even thought to reach out to before. So you're going to learn things along the way over the course of your campaign, and you act on them as soon as you can. Pay attention to that information. That's kind of what all of this is about. Is everything that you're getting from the world around you is feedback about the thing that you're doing, and it's a matter of what will you do with it. So that's my plan to learn from your crowd story, and then don't worry, of course, we have these scheduling templates, and I'm sure some of you will also run into Vincent, and maybe he'll help you out too.
And also, especially about plan to learn from your crowd. I'm doing a crowdfunding campaign right now, and you can just ask people. I just started asking people who I really trusted, who I knew wouldn't feel weird about me asking. I was like, what do you think about these reward levels? Why would you give or why would you not? And I got really, really, really good feedback, which then made me change some of the rewards that we're giving and a lot of other stuff. So with the people you trust who will give you good feedback, just ask, because they'll tell you a lot of stuff once they know you want to hear it. So, just opening lines of communication.
Right. So listen, sometimes you do all this planning, and you put together all these materials, and you write to all your people, and you launch your campaign, and nothing happens. And chances are, that means that something in your materials or your planning or your outreach strategy was off for your community. That nothing happens is also important feedback. And the answer probably isn't that all your friends suck. So this is a really important time to go back to the drawing board. It's never too late to salvage a campaign, even if it means shutting it down for 2 months and starting from scratch and then coming back to it. But don't stick to a failing plan. Don't just let your campaign fester on the internet and give up on it and let it sit there and come up in Google searches and things like that. Really go back to the drawing board and figure out what it is about your outreach that isn't reaching people. So what you're going to do is, while you're sticking to your schedule and you're reviewing your message testing every 4 or 5 days and making adjustments, you can go to the next slide, you're going to go back to the interview, no matter what happens. If you're getting a shit ton of donations, or contributions rather, they're not actually technically donations, if you're getting a ton of them, write to some of the people who've contributed who surprised you and say, hey, how did you hear about this? Or what was it that really pulled you? Or why did you decide to contribute at the level that you did? Find out some information from them, because it'll be really important. So when Vincent wrote that article, and I read it and I realized what about what we were doing was speaking to him as somebody who comes from a very technical community. And that was the stuff that I really started paying attention to in our outreach. But it's just best, just as Alex said, is just to ask them. The other thing is that in the first week of your campaign, there are going to be people who are like, yeah, I'm totally going to contribute, or who you would assume would say that, who don't. And you need to talk to them too. And it's much easier to go to them and be like, yo, why didn't you give me money? Just to go to them and say, hey, can I ask you some advice about my campaign? What is it that you think works? What do you think doesn't work? Once they know you're open to feedback, they're already going to be more likely to contribute. You're not using guilt. I remember early on when I started raising money for CD Spark, somebody, and I'm sure anybody who's raised money for movies has heard that old adage, if you want money, ask for advice, and if you want advice, ask for money. In this case, actually, if you really want to figure out how to part people with their money, you have to ask their advice, because they're going to tell you what's really going to make them excited. And in the first week or 2 of your campaign, it doesn't continue to be any less valuable feedback than it was 6 or 8 weeks before your campaign when you just got started. So there's always ongoing planning. There's this ongoing message testing that I just talked about. You're going to research new elements as they come up. So all of a sudden, I had Vincent writing about me. Now I needed to do a whole bunch more research about the other gear bloggers like Philip Bloom and Digital Volex and things like that, and that was very fruitful. Creating more opportunities for updates. I mean, you guys are all in a room together right now. You can meet people, shake hands, kiss babies, exchange business cards, talk about the projects that you're working on. Imagine what the first day of all of your campaigns would be like if everybody in this room contributed and or shared everybody else in this room's campaign. Think about how many movies would get made. That's so awesome. We have this power together. But we only really feel the power of that community when we come to these rooms together and start to really interact. Turn your thank yous into more outreach all along the way. Don't forget to do that because you get busy. It's really important, particularly if you do it for the first 20 people and not for the other people. I promise you the other people are like, but I wanted to go in time, travel in time. Altruism always works. Be out there supporting others. There is a reason that I continue to talk about other people's campaigns in this presentation. These people taught me so much about crowdfunding that I'm literally teaching 60 of these classes in the next several months. I'm going to teach thousands of people about Sean Mannion and his film Time Signature. And this film, If There's a Hell Below, who 2 weeks into their campaign decided that they weren't going to ask for a particular amount of money. They just wanted to get their hard drives funded. And then they went to an organization in their hometown of Portland called Real Girls, which is a media leadership training organization. And they said, hey, we would like to be known as somebody who's contributing information to you, or contributing equipment to you. We're going to go out and tell everybody that when we're done with them, we're going to contribute our hard drives to Real Girls. And they did that, and they funded their hard drives quickly, and they gave Real Girls some publicity. And then I told this story at the Louisiana Film Festival in Baton Rouge, and the backstage reporter contacted me to get a hold of Nathan, to get a hold of Real Girls, and then Real Girls got national press coverage. That's the shit that actually happens when you practice altruism in these sorts of things. Sheila Scorned is a feminist grindhouse flick who was like, we need to activate the badass chick community in Los Angeles. Where can we go? Well, no other place than the Angel City Derby, right? And they set up an event at the roller derby, and they made fake tattoos, and you could put on fake tattoos and take pictures with roller derby girls. It was awesome. And a portion of the ticket sales went to their campaign. So the Angel City Derby became a supporter of this feminist grindhouse film. And I have told you enough about time signature memorabilia, but these are other creative ways you can think to do outreach throughout the course of your campaign. When you're done with your campaign, you have to think about collecting materials to maintain the sense of momentum to your community, to continue to update them and let them know that their money has actually bought the thing that you promised you would do, and to supply all of the things you will need when you continue your campaigning, the things that you need to supply to your promoters who are now in their communities promoting the screenings of your film. You need BTS, you need clips, you need funny interviews with the director, you need blooper reels, you need stills, of course. You need pictures of any incentive fulfillment that you did. Like that backer of yours who showed up to your party and then awkwardly made out with the AD or whatever. It's fine. These are all things that you need to distribute out to the community so that they have a sense that you did what you promised and that they can use to continue to promote the film. So after your campaign, you continue to grow your audience. You use all these materials to continue to gather people to your community, emails to your email list. Seed and Spark is actually the only platform that allows you to continue to grow your following even after the campaign is closed, because we're really just purpose-built for audience building. So you're going to use all of these things, your active social media presence, to continue to collect more email addresses, more followers to your campaign, so that, for example, if you want to launch another campaign 6 months from now, you have more people there than when you left. At festivals, every Q&A is a miraculous opportunity to build a new audience. I know everybody wants to talk about Park City, Austin, and New York, but may I just say that if you are lucky enough to do a second-tier festival tour in secondary markets like Portland, like Austin, Columbia, Missouri, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Seattle, Washington, Mississippi, Alabama, any of these states, you are being given the opportunity to connect with audiences that you probably didn't have access to before, unless that's your home state. That is an invaluable opportunity to gather new followers and new people who will support your artistic career moving forward. So do not discount those festivals. Don't shake your hand at them, because while yes, maybe, and it's actually only maybe, if you go to Sundance, you get picked up for a distribution deal, which, by the way, would probably involve you handing over all of your social media accounts, and all of that work you did would be now owned by the distributor. You could go to those second-tier festivals, continue to build the audience that is building your path towards an independent career. So don't count out the smaller festivals, the shorts festivals, where you're not even thinking about a distribution deal at this point. These are really important places. And then you can always join the conversation. So for example, next Tuesday at 11 a.m. PST, we host, Seed and Spark hosts every other Tuesday, a Film Curious Twitter chat. And we bring in experts and all these things, and for an hour on Twitter, on the hashtag Film Curious, we connect people in the community to the experts they want to talk about. We crowdsource the questions. We do things on topics like distribution, equity financing. We connect you with investors, all sorts of things. And what we've discovered is that the people who participate in Film Curious are all promoting one another's campaigns. So we have a filmmaker in Portland who just finished his campaign, who has spent the last week campaigning on behalf of a filmmaker he has never met in Atlanta, Georgia, simply because they're connected through the Film Curious community. There are others like this, Script Chat. These are ways to connect with people who will support you in cities you've never been to, which is super cool. And the whole point is that you have this concentric circle at the center of which is you and your filmmaking team, and that's really where we all start. And then the circle outside of that is your friends and family, right, which is the next layer that we already have. But then you start to build these rings, your promoters and supporters, your alumni organizations, your entire social media presence that's built up of all that outreach that you do over the course of your campaign. And then on the outside of that, you have the community across the country and maybe across the world that you build in your festival screening, so that the next time you start a funding campaign, or the moment you start to think about your theatrical screening, you're starting at the outside, at the outer ring of that circle, and building out from there for the rest of your career. Do you know how much easier it gets next time, next film, next short? Incredibly easier.
Yeah, the beauty of Tug too is that when all of the screenings that you do, you get email addresses, which, as we said, is the most important thing, of everybody that attended your screenings, as well as the people that hosted your screenings, right? So those are incredibly important people that you can activate for when the DVD comes out, for when you want to sell merch, for everything about that film, and equally as important for when you make your next film. Because if they attended your screening, hopefully they liked your movie, and now you tell them, we just came out with the sequel, or we came out with something else about this theme or this topic or whatever. They already trust you and care about you, so they're going to be a lot more likely to fund your next movie, to attend screenings of it, to host screenings of it. It just like keeps building and building and building. It all starts from crowdfunding, your first thing. This is about Tug. So this is about getting butts in seats. So it's about keeping the conversation going and focusing on delivering your film to supporters and fans and not waiting for a distributor. So most of the films that we work with that have a lot of success don't have distributors. And a lot of the times, they'll have a distributor who's a lot more concerned with, VOD and DVD sales, but not as much with their theatrical. And we'll pretty much count on the filmmakers using Tug to handle their own theatrical. And so filmmakers, even if you do have a distributor or if you don't, they still are heavily involved. It's not like a lot of filmmakers think that they can just kind of back away once they've gotten a distributor, and the opposite is true, because you still have to be finding the people that are going to host screenings, the organizations that are going to be hosting screenings. Like the best story, very quickly, is a film called Honor Flight. Have any of you guys heard of that? Exactly. But that film has hosted over 200 screenings on Tug. And it's a film about, Honor Flight is this idea, it's a flight where you fly veterans to the World War II Memorial in DC. There are Honor Flight hubs in every little town and city across the country with people that care about getting these veterans to these to the memorial. So a documentary was made about Honor Flight, and every single one of those hubs wanted to host a screening in order to raise money to bring their veterans to the memorial. And just like that, they've had like over 200 screenings. They're still hosting screenings, and it's a film that never got distribution. It's a film that is doing incredibly well because they knew their audience, and so they activated those Honor Flight hubs, veterans communities, veterans organizations, and everybody else like that. And that all happened from knowing their audience at the very beginning of the campaign. Your job isn't done when you hand off the film. Make yourself available for Q&As. Our Tug screenings work a lot better when a filmmaker can be there or Skype in for Q&As. That's like the one question you're trying to answer with Tug is, why would people come to the theater? It's another version of why do people care. And a big reason to come to the theater is to see and meet the director or the actor or the editor or whoever. And if it can't be one of them, let it be somebody in the community that connects to the film. So somebody that heads up a veterans organization, or if in the case of like your pop movie, maybe a cop comes and talks, or whatever it is, just like something that gets them to put their pants on and go to the theater as opposed to watching it at home on VOD, right? That's like the big thing that we're trying to figure out with Tug. Keep your windows open. Communicate with theaters before putting your film on VOD. So you guys know about like windowing and all that? Maybe, yes. So films have. So the idea is that theaters want a movie to have a 90-day or longer exclusivity where they don't go out on VOD, right? So that's something that you have to think about. Like, are we going to go out on VOD right away? Because that limits the amount of theaters you can play in. With Tug, you can use some theaters, you can use all the AMC chains, but not Cinemark or Regal, because they're a lot more sort of stringent on not playing VOD films because they think it's going to ruin the theatrical business, right? So it's like thinking through all of these things before you actually, release the film. And then bring your film to theaters using a service like Tug. And remember, no one will sell your film the way that you can. I think that's incredibly true. We've seen a lot of films with that get distribution, and the distributors have no idea how to sell a film.
Do you know who Lionsgate hired to promote Dear White People? The director, Justin Simmons. They hired him to actually run all of their promotional materials, produce the promotional videos. Justin Simmons' new full-time job is like Lionsgate's lackey for promoting Dear White People. And of course he's delighted to because it's been his baby and nobody can do it the way he can. But that's a really, really good example. There's also the Summer Indie Movie Challenge. These are 4 independent filmmakers, the directors of Ping Pong Summer, Hellion, Obvious Child, and the 4th one I always forget. I'm so sorry. They banded together, they started a website that's Summer Indie Movie Challenge. You can follow it on that hashtag as well. And they said, if you can provide a ticket stub or a VOD receipt of having watched all 4 films, you will get a prize package from each of the 4 films, right? So this is a way of promoting. And I called the distributor for Ping Pong Summer, Gravitas, and I was like, this is awesome, great idea. And they were like, what are you talking about? They had no idea this was even happening. These are 4 films that were picked up by 4 separate distributors, and the distributors had no part in this. It was just the directors taking the initiative to make sure to reach out to their audiences and incentivize them to go see not just 1, because that would be selfish, but 4, altruistic. See how that works? It's amazing.
And the overall, it's just like, no matter what happens to the film, you're gonna have to be incredibly involved. Otherwise, you just won't succeed. You know, like there's one film on Tug called Angel's Perch. It's a film about, it's a narrative film about Alzheimer's. And they did a tour with Tug. They activated Alzheimer's associations all across the country. I think did over 20 screenings and theaters, and they went to every single one, did Q&As, and then they sold merch out of their car after the screenings and made a lot of money. You know, and I don't know if we're supposed to condone that second part, so it might not be legal, but the point is they did it, and they succeeded, and now they're making another movie with the money and the fans that they accrued through that campaign. Big questions.
I know that we've taken, we're a little bit probably over time, but if you guys have questions, yes, sir.
What's the fee on Seating Spark?
So we have a standard fee. It's 5% of cash raised. We don't take any interest in the loans, but we also allow your audiences to cover our fee on your behalf, and about 60% of them do. So we end up having, and we also don't use a third-party service provider like a PayPal or an Amazon.
So there's no like 3% on top of processing?
No. So our fees are the lowest in the business. Kind of sweet. Yes, sir.
You can do equity as well, or you just...
No, equity is not legal in the United States. I know that everybody's really confused because we've talked a ton about Title III, and yes, it was a law that passed, but the regulations required to actually enact the law have not been formally approved by the SEC. And they've actually, because of some other kinds of important things that have been happening, have been put on the back burner. And the people who I know who actually participated in writing the legislation have said they don't feel very good about that stuff coming back up for a while. We're probably going to have to get through a presidential election before we see it again. We'll say one thing about this. Fewer than 8% of independent films make back their money, let alone make profit. That sucks. And there's a lot that we all collectively need to do in the way we budget and the way that we're involved in our distribution to improve that number before we go selling equity to audiences. Because right now, in crowdfunding, the way it is now, perks-based, success, as far as the audience is concerned, is completion and delivery of the film and the incentives, right? Which we have control over. We can do something about that. Once you add equity into it, success becomes completion, delivery, and financial success of the film. And if we know for a fact that fewer than 8% of us can achieve that financial success, we have no business offering that until we fix it. So at Seed and Spark, we're taking the tack that we need to figure out how to help filmmakers actively and successfully monetize downstream. And once we can get that number up to let's say 20%, then it becomes an interesting investment all of a sudden. Or 30%, or 50% is my goal in the next 5 years. And if I do that, frankly, we win. All of us actually win. So that's a longer conversation maybe, but that's what I would say about equity. Yes?
This may be just a basic marketing question, but I'm new to all of this. And I was wondering what you recommend for timing in terms of posting Twitter and Facebook kind of snazzy appeals. I'm promoting both in the USA and Australia, and I found that it's kind of random when people respond, and I just haven't gone through and analyzed, and I'm guessing there are some rules about
Yeah,
what's more effective.
you can read a lot and a lot of conflicting opinions.
Yeah.
Thursday is a low internet day for whatever reason. Weekends are lower than during the week, but people still, for the most part, 9 to 5 actually can't be on social media. So it tends to be non-work hours. Although 1 p.m. right after people have gotten back from their lunch break seems to be a very popular time to send out newsletters, except that everybody knows that. So
Except me.
right, sorry. So I would say, that stuff is, we have a social media handbook on our website. So under, if you go to our blog or you go to How to Seed and Spark, there's a section called Awesome Downloads where everything you've seen today, including the templates, the narrative version of this class, and a social media handbook that's written by a Webby Award winner is all available there. But yeah, I mean, there are some basic formulas that people use, but that's part of the message testing that you do. So you find out from people, oh, they're working all the time. Where are they working? Oh, they're working on their laptop. Chances are, if they're working on their laptop, they're on social media all the time also. But if you find out they work at a 9 to 5 punch the clock job, then 9 to 5 is probably not a good time to try to reach them. So that's part of the message testing, right? To figure out where your community fits in that stuff. Yes, sir.
I need somewhere to put my phone to password protected and maybe ask people to come and see it. If I didn't raise my hand, what platform can I do that?
I can put it behind a paywall, but not behind a password.
Oh, sorry,
And-
paywall, yes.
Yes.
So even if I didn't use
You can use our distribution platform, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, Nick.
My question is regarding the screenings. I'm originally from South Africa, so the screenings would make sense to take place in my home country. Does Tugs meet, is Tug able to provide that service in other countries other than the US?
So we're not yet theatrically in, well, we are testing in Australia and Canada and the UK right now. The goal is to be everywhere in movie theaters. We do community screenings anywhere. So you can buy a DVD or Blu-ray and we'll ship it on your behalf to any country. The key thing that you have to know is certain countries have different formats. So we're NTSC in the US and Canada and most of South America, but it's PAL in most of Europe and I think Africa. So you just have, as long as you have that format available, we'll handle it.
A question about screens.
Yeah.
What kind of films are you seeing? Are you seeing short format, long format, or in between, or typically?
It's mainly feature films on theatrical. With non-theatrical, with community, it can be anything as long as an audience wants to see it and people want to buy screening licenses of it. But theatrical, it has to be over 60 minutes in order for us to book the theater. But something we're playing with is bundling shorts together and things like that, and creating sort of a big part of Tug is curation. So partnering with a curator that has some influence, like Oprah, or somebody that can take a bundle of shorts and yeah, exactly.
Just the greatest curator who ever lived.
Yeah, exactly. So like doing what she did with books, but with movies, right? Or taking a lot of shorts and curating them so everybody can screen that shorts package anywhere across the country. So those are things that we're like playing.
Yes.
Hi, I am in Montreal, and I'm just wondering, can you do scenes for Canada?
Not yet. I'm actually going up to Canada this fall to see if I can sort that out. Canada is a shockingly difficult place to set up a foreign corporation. I say shockingly because I was like, oh, whatever, it's just Canada. Like, they're like us, right? And Canada was like, no, we're not. So we're working on that. I'm working with actually a startup accelerator up there in Toronto to try to work on that. Right now, you just have to have a U.S. bank account, but not for distributing film, just for crowdfunding. So if you have a U.S. bank account that we can transfer the money into, no problem. Otherwise, just for now. We're a brand baby new company. All of this has happened super fast for us, which is both awesome and terrifying. Because while we're trying to set up in Canada, we're also just trying to keep up with the inbound, and then we're trying to do this everywhere. There's only 7 of us, but we'll try. I'm really gonna try, and I appreciate your interest.
Okay, no, I was just wondering, can I just say something about my film quickly? 'Cause
Yeah.
It's playing at 2:30, if anyone's into hip-hop dance.
What's it called?
Vanishing Point.
Vanishing Points. All right, everybody go see Vanishing Points at 2:30. Thank you so much for your time and your patience with us today. And obviously, we're here for a second. Bright Ideas Magazine is the semi-annual magazine we publish. It's distributed at a lot of North American film festivals. You'll be able to buy a subscription soon. These are for our lovely volunteer. And we'll see you on the interwebs.